I left my 4-year-old with my ex-wife for the weekend. On Sunday, my daughter called, whispering, "Daddy, please come get me now." "What's wrong?" I asked. "Mom's boyfriend is here, he's doing things I don't like." I sped down the highway at 90 miles an hour. When I kicked in the door, what I saw made me call 911 on the spot. There are moments in life that shatter everything you thought you knew, moments that leave you gasping for air, clutching at the tattered edges of your world. For me, that moment arrived with a chilling phone call from my 4-year-old daughter, her voice a tiny, trembling whisper, begging me to save her from a monster I'd foolishly allowed into her life. My name is Reed Durham, and for years, I've made a living exposing the darkest corners of corporate greed and systemic injustice. My documentaries were raw, uncomfortable, and they asked questions no one else dared to. But even after years of staring evil in the face, nothing could have prepared me for the day I realized the monster was at my own doorstep. Life back then was a chaotic ballet of deadlines, research, and late-night editing in my Denver loft. My workspace was a battlefield of hard drives and storyboards, but it was all worth it. Especially for Emma. My daughter. My world. She was the one pure, undeniable good that came from my imploded marriage to Amber, her mom. Emma was 4, all gap-toothed grins and boundless energy, and our custody arrangement was, well, it worked. I had her most weekdays while Amber, a pharmaceutical sales rep, traveled constantly. Weekends were Amber's. It wasn't perfect, but we made it work. Or so I thought. The first crack in my carefully constructed world came during a call with Scott, my cameraman and best friend since film school. He was joking about B-roll, then his voice shifted, dropping to a serious tone. "Hey, Reed," he said, "you ever get weird vibes from Amber's new boyfriend, Felipe Roach?" My jaw tightened. Felipe. The guy had slithered into Amber's life 3 months ago, and every interaction left my skin crawling. He was too smooth, too charming, always impeccably dressed, always with the perfect thing to say. But his eyes. God, his eyes were dead. Empty. "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice carefully neutral. Scott described seeing Felipe at the grocery store, staring at kids in the checkout line. "I don't know, man. Something's off." I'd felt it too, that cold unease, but I tried to dismiss it as jealousy, overprotectiveness. A voice in the back of my mind, though, the investigator's voice, whispered, "Document everything," and I had. Every pickup, every conversation. "That's paranoid, even for you," Scott had said. Maybe, I admitted, but I didn't expose that predator ring in Oklahoma by trusting my gut alone. I trusted evidence. After we hung up, I checked my watch. Friday evening. Emma was with Amber for the weekend. Their first overnight visit since Felipe had moved in. I'd fought it, but my lawyer said I had no legal grounds. Not without proof. I pulled up a hidden folder on my computer, Durham vs. Carroll documentation. Timestamped notes, tense recordings, photographs of Felipe's social media, before it went private. I'd been digging, but the man was a ghost before 5 years ago. No college records, no employment, nothing. Just appeared. That alone should have been a screaming red flag. Then, a text from Amber. "Emma's settled in. Stop worrying. We're watching a movie." Followed by a photo. Emma on the couch, clutching her stuffed rabbit, the one she only held when she was scared. But it was her smile. It didn't reach her eyes. My breath hitched. I zoomed in on the reflection in the TV screen behind her. Felipe was there, in the background. But he wasn't watching the movie. He was watching Emma. My blood ran cold. Saturday arrived, but sleep didn't. I spent the night replaying every interaction, every small hesitation in Emma's voice when I asked about Mr. Felipe. Individual instances, easy to dismiss, but together, they formed a terrifying picture. "Daddy, Mr. Felipe says weird things," she'd casually mentioned 2 weeks ago. "Like he says I'm special, different. He wants to take pictures of me." I'd confronted Amber, but she'd laughed. "He's a photographer, Reed. You're being paranoid." But I'd checked. Felipe wasn't a photographer. He claimed import-export, which meant nothing and everything. Saturday dragged. I called Amber twice. Voicemail. I texted. No response. By evening, my anxiety had morphed into something sharper, a primal fear. I drove the 40 minutes to Amber's townhouse. Her car was there. Lights were on. It looked normal, but it wasn't. I sat in my truck across the street for an hour, watching. Around 9 p.m., Felipe's black Escalade pulled in. I watched him enter, carrying groceries and a bottle of wine. Through the window, Amber greeted him, laughing, touching his arm. Then, Emma appeared briefly in her upstairs bedroom window. She pressed her small hand against the glass, and even from that distance, I could see her looking directly at my truck. She knew I was there. Watching. Protecting. I drove home, forcing myself to trust a system I'd always questioned in my films. Sunday morning. My phone buzzed insistently. 7:04 a.m. Unknown number. Hello, Daddy. Emma's voice was barely a whisper. Trembling. I sat bolt upright. Emma, baby, what's wrong? My heart stopped. Come get me now. Please, Daddy, right now. What's happening? Where's Mommy? She went to the store with Mr. Felipe's friend. Daddy, Mr. Felipe is here. He's doing things I can't even explain. Her voice broke into a sob. Emma, listen to me. I'm coming right now. Lock your bedroom door. Can you do that? It doesn't have a lock. Then push something against it. Your toy chest. Anything. I'm already in the car. I was grabbing keys, phone, wallet. Stay on the phone with me, baby. He's calling me. I have to go. Emma. Emma. The line went dead. I don't remember getting into my truck or pulling out of the garage. Only slamming the accelerator, my truck hitting 90 miles per hour on E470, weaving through traffic like a man possessed. Every second felt like an eternity. Every red light I ran felt justified. My phone was on speaker. Voice command activated. Call 911. 911, what's your emergency? My 4-year-old daughter just called me terrified. She's alone with a man I don't trust at 8425 Meadow Creek Lane, Highlands Ranch. Her mother left her there. She said he's doing things she can't explain. I'm 10 minutes away. Sir, remain calm. Units are being dispatched. Do not, I disconnected. Tracy's number. She answered on the first ring. Reed, it's Sunday morning, Emma called me. Something's happening. I'm almost there. I need you to call my lawyer now and call Scott. Tell him to meet me at Amber's with his camera. Everything needs to be documented. Oh my God, Reed, what, just do it. I took the exit at 70, tires screaming. 3 miles. 2. 1. I wasn't just a father racing to save his daughter. I was an investigator who'd spent a decade learning how predators operated, how they hid, how they manipulated systems designed to protect children. I'd interviewed survivors, exposed networks, destroyed carefully constructed lies. But this was different. This was Emma. I pulled onto Meadow Creek Lane, my truck mounting the curb in front of Amber's townhouse. The front door was locked. I didn't hesitate. I'd played football in college, maintained my build. My shoulder hit the door twice before the frame splintered. Emma. The living room was empty. Normal. Too normal. Kids' toys scattered, but arranged. Staged. I took the stairs 3 at a time. Emma. Her bedroom door was closed. I threw it open. Emma was sitting on her bed in her pajamas, clutching her rabbit, tears streaming down her face. Alone. Physically unharmed. But her eyes. God. Her eyes held a terror no 4-year-old should know. Daddy. She launched herself into my arms. I held her, my hands shaking as I checked her over. Are you hurt? Did he touch you? He made me. He wanted me to, she couldn't finish, sobbing into my shoulder. Then I heard movement downstairs. My protective instinct transformed into something primal. I set Emma gently on the bed. Stay here. Daddy. Don't, but I was already moving. I descended the stairs to find Felipe Roach in the kitchen, calmly pouring coffee, still in a bathrobe. He looked up with that same empty smile. Amber didn't mention you were stopping by. My fist clenched. Every documentary I'd made about justice, about doing things the right way, about exposing truth through evidence. It all evaporated in the face of this man's audacity. What did you do to my daughter? I don't know what you're talking about. Emma and I were just hanging out while Amber ran errands. Felipe's voice was casual. Practiced. Kids have active imaginations. She probably had a nightmare. You know how kids are. I stepped forward, and Felipe's mask slipped for just a second, revealing something cold and calculating underneath. This wasn't panic. He was assessing. Planning his next move. You should leave before Amber gets back, Felipe said. This is her weekend. The sound of sirens cut through the air. Felipe's expression hardened. You called the cops. What? I'm telling you, nothing happened. 2 police cars pulled up outside. Officers Davis Miller and Nina Avery entered through the broken door, hands on their weapons. Hands where we can see them. Miller commanded. I raised my hands. My daughter's upstairs. She called me scared. This man, I pointed at Felipe, was alone with her. Officer Avery went upstairs while Miller kept us separated. I could hear Emma's sobs, Avery's gentle voice coaxing information. Felipe remained calm, almost amused. This is a misunderstanding, officer. I'm the boyfriend of the child's mother. We were simply, save it, Miller interrupted, his expression dark. He'd been a cop for 15 years. He knew predator behavior when he saw it. Avery came down the stairs, her face pale, but professional. She whispered something to Miller, and his jaw clenched. Mr. Roach, we're going to need you to come down to the station for questioning. On what grounds? On the grounds that a 4-year-old just gave a very specific statement about inappropriate behavior. You have the right to remain silent. As Miller cuffed Felipe, the man's eyes locked onto mine. No fear, no shame, just cold calculation and something else. A promise. This wasn't over. Amber's car screeched into the driveway. She jumped out, another man, lanky, nervous-looking, following behind her. What the hell is going on? She screamed. I turned to face my ex-wife, holding Emma protectively. Your boyfriend was alone with Emma. She called me terrified. What were you thinking, leaving her alone with him? I was gone for 20 minutes. Felipe's harmless. Harmless. My voice was ice. Our daughter is traumatized, Amber. Whatever you think you know about this man, you're wrong. Officer Avery intervened. Ma'am, we'll need to speak with you as well. Your daughter has made some serious allegations. As they loaded Felipe into the patrol car, he smiled at me through the window. Not a nervous smile. A confident one. That's when I realized Felipe thought he'd get away with this. He'd done this before. The fake identity, the careful grooming, the manipulation. This was a pattern, and the justice system might not be enough to stop him. The children's hospital interview room smelled like industrial cleaner and fear. I sat behind one-way glass, watching Emma talk to Dr. Sarah Chun, a kind-faced woman specializing in child trauma. Scott arrived an hour after my call, camera discreetly documenting everything from the hallway. We couldn't film Emma directly, but we could document the process, the timeline, the response. Tracy sat beside me, her hand gripping my arm. She's so brave, my sister whispered. On the monitor, Emma clutched her rabbit and spoke in a small voice about the touching game, the secret game, the camera game. My stomach twisted. Camera game, Dr. Chun emerged 20 minutes later, her expression carefully neutral, but her eyes blazing. We have enough for charges. The DA will file by tomorrow. Will it stick? I asked, my voice hoarse. She's 4. Defense attorneys will tear her apart on the stand. She's incredibly articulate for her age, and her account was consistent, detailed. But, Dr. Chun hesitated. You should know, Felipe Roach lawyered up immediately. And not with a public defender. He hired the Keller Group. Scott whistled low. The guys who defend Fortune 500 executives. The same. Someone's bankrolling him, I mused, my investigative instincts kicking in. Which means this isn't some random predator. This is organized. What did you find in his background check? I asked Detective Miller, who'd entered the room. That's the thing, Miller said, shaking his head. Felipe Roach didn't exist before 2020. The name's an alias. His fingerprints aren't in the system, but his photo got a hit on facial recognition. Possible match to a person of interest in a Nevada case from 2018. Different name, different city. What case? Miller's expression darkened. Child exploitation. Never went to trial. The witnesses disappeared. My blood ran cold. This wasn't just about Emma. Felipe was part of something bigger. Something that knew how to make problems disappear. I want copies of everything, I demanded. Every report, every statement. You know I can't, detective, I've made 7 documentaries exposing criminal networks. I've worked with the FBI, with ICE, with Interpol. I know how to protect sources. And I know how to build cases that go beyond reasonable doubt. If Felipe walks because the system fails my daughter, I'll make sure the whole world knows how it happened. Miller studied me. You're talking about making this public. I'm talking about making sure Emma gets justice. Whatever that takes. Later that night, I sat in my loft with Scott, Tracy, and a bottle of whiskey. None of us were drinking. Emma slept in my bedroom, finally calm after hours of tears. Amber's lawyer called, Tracy said quietly. She wants an emergency custody hearing. Claims you broke into her house and kidnapped Emma. I saved Emma from a predator, I retorted, bitter. I know that, but she's spinning it differently. Says you're unstable. That you've always been jealous of Felipe. That you orchestrated this whole thing. My laugh was hollow. Of course she is. She can't admit she brought a monster into our daughter's life. Scott pulled up his laptop. While you were at the hospital, I did some digging. Felipe's Escalade is registered to an LLC called Meridian Holdings. That LLC is owned by another LLC, which is owned by shell companies. Standard money laundering structure, I finished. What's the root company? That's where it gets interesting. It traces back to a pharmaceutical company. Want to guess who works in pharmaceutical sales? My blood turned to ice. Amber. Not just Amber. The company she works for, Prometheus Pharmaceuticals, has been under federal investigation for off-label marketing and insurance fraud. What if Felipe wasn't dating Amber by accident? What if he targeted her? For what purpose? Tracy leaned forward. Reed, think about it. You've been investigating corporate fraud for years. You've made powerful people very uncomfortable. What if this is retaliation? You think someone sent Felipe to hurt Amber, to get to me? I think we don't know enough, Scott said. But there are too many coincidences. Fake identity. Mob-level lawyers. Connections to a company under federal investigation. And he just happens to date your ex-wife. I stood, pacing. My mind raced through possibilities, patterns, connections. This was what I did. I found the truth in chaos. But this time, the truth was terrifyingly personal. Tomorrow morning, I told Scott, I need you to pull all footage from surveillance cameras within a 2-block radius of Amber's place. I want to know everyone who came and went this weekend. Plates, faces, timestamps. Already on it. Tracy, I need you to call my lawyer. If Amber wants a custody fight, she'll get one, but I'm filing for emergency sole custody first. Already drafted the motion. I looked at my team, my sister, my best friend. People who'd stood by me through every difficult investigation, every threat, every moment when exposing the truth seemed impossible. This is different, I said quietly. This isn't about a story or a documentary. If we go after Felipe, really go after him, we're going to uncover things that powerful people want buried. They'll come after us. They already did, Scott said simply. They came after Emma. That was all I needed to hear. I opened my laptop and created a new folder, Project Reckoning. Inside, I began compiling everything. Every note. Every photo. Every suspicious detail about Felipe Roach. This wasn't going to be a documentary. This was going to be a weapon. Because I'd learned something over 10 years of investigative journalism, the system worked, but slowly. And sometimes, monsters didn't wait for justice. Sometimes, they struck again while lawyers argued and judges deliberated. Felipe had smiled at me in that police car. Confident. Sure he'd walk. I would make sure that confidence was Felipe's last mistake. Monday morning, I stood in the Boulder County Courthouse, Emma's hand clasped in mine. The emergency custody hearing had been fast-tracked. Judge Margaret Romero didn't take kindly to children being placed in danger, and my broken door suddenly looked less like assault and more like rescue. Amber sat across the aisle with her lawyer. She wouldn't make eye contact, her arms crossed defensively. Whatever story she'd constructed in her mind to excuse Felipe's behavior, she was clinging to it desperately. All rise, the bailiff called. Judge Romero entered, a stern woman in her 60s with steel-gray hair and a reputation for destroying parents who failed their children. I've reviewed the police reports, the forensic interview, and the CPS investigation. She began without preamble. Miss Carroll, do you understand the severity of what occurred in your home? Amber's lawyer stood. Your Honor, my client maintains that this is a misunderstanding. Mr. Roach has been released on bail and denies all allegations. The child's account is consistent, detailed, and corroborated by physical evidence, Judge Romero interrupted. Photos on Mr. Roach's phone that he failed to properly delete. The forensic analysis is ongoing, but preliminary reports are damning. My grip on Emma's hand tightened. Photos. The camera game was real. Until Mr. Roach's trial is concluded, I'm granting temporary full custody to Mr. Durham. Miss Carroll, you'll have supervised visitation only, and Mr. Roach is prohibited from any contact with a minor child. Violation will result in immediate arrest. Amber stood up. You can't do this. Reed put her up to this. He's always been jealous. Miss Carroll, sit down, the judge commanded. Your daughter was found crying and traumatized after you left her alone with a man who is now facing multiple felony charges. I suggest you focus less on defending your boyfriend and more on understanding how catastrophically you failed your child. The gavel struck. The hearing was over. Outside the courthouse, Amber caught up to me at my truck. You did this, she hissed. You poisoned Emma against Felipe. You couldn't stand that I moved on. I turned, and whatever she saw in my face made her step back. I saved our daughter from a predator you invited into her life, I said, my voice deadly calm. Emma called me terrified, Amber. She called me because she knew you wouldn't protect her. You were too busy playing happy family with a man you didn't even bother to vet. Did you know Felipe Roach isn't his real name? Amber's eyes widened. What? Did you know he's wanted for questioning in at least 2 other states? That his entire identity is fabricated? Or were you so desperate for companionship that you didn't care who you brought around our daughter? Felipe told me he had to change his name because of an abusive ex, she whispered. And you believed him? My voice dripped with contempt. You believed a man with no verifiable past, no real job, no connections or history. What did he tell you about himself, Amber? Where did he grow up? Where did he go to school? What are his parents' names? Amber's silence was damning. That's what I thought, I continued. You don't know anything about him except what he told you. And what he told you was a lie designed to gain access to Emma. He used you. You're wrong, Amber whispered, but her voice wavered. Felipe loves me. He wouldn't, he used you to get to her. And if you can't see that, then you're not the woman I married. I opened my truck door. Stay away from us until you figure out whose side you're on. As I drove away, I glanced in the rearview mirror. Amber stood in the parking lot, shoulders shaking. Part of me, a small part, felt sorry for her. She'd been manipulated, used. But mostly, I felt rage. My loft transformed into a war room. 3 laptops, 2 monitors, hard drives stacked like bricks, and a massive corkboard covered in photos, documents, and red string connecting the dots. Scott worked at one station, Tracy at another, while I commanded the center position. Okay, here's what we know, I said, pointing to Felipe's photo at the center of the board. Felipe Roach is an alias. His real name is, according to facial recognition, possibly Domingo Nichols, wanted in Nevada for child exploitation. But Domingo Nichols is also likely an alias. This man is a ghost. Not quite, Scott interrupted, pulling up a new screen. I tracked down the Meridian Holdings LLC. It's registered to an address in Las Vegas, a mail drop. But I found the lawyer who filed the paperwork, Wilfredo Christian of Christian and Associates. I wrote the name on the board. What do we know about him? Specializes in setting up untraceable shell companies for clients who want to move money without scrutiny. His client list reads like a who's who of organized crime, corrupt politicians, and, Scott paused for effect. Pharmaceutical executives under investigation. Prometheus Pharmaceuticals, Tracy added. Amber's company. I pulled their SEC filings. Last year, they paid out $17 million in federal fines for fraudulent marketing practices. 3 executives are currently under indictment. Guess who their defense attorney is? The Keller Group, I finished. The same firm defending Felipe. The connections were forming. I stepped back, studying the board. This isn't random, I said slowly. Someone at Prometheus knew I was investigating them. They knew my connection to Amber. They sent Felipe to what? Tracy asked. Intimidate you? To destroy me, I corrected. Think about it. If Felipe had succeeded in abusing her more extensively, I'd be destroyed as a father and as an investigator. My credibility would be shot. I'd be too broken to finish whatever documentary I'm working on. And if Emma's trauma got blamed on the divorce, on me, Scott's face paled. Jesus, you think Prometheus sent him specifically to hurt Emma? I think Felipe is a contractor, I said. A professional. He's done this before. Create a false identity, target a family, exploit children, disappear when things get hot. But someone pays him. Someone powerful enough to provide fake documents, expensive lawyers, and an exit strategy. So, we need to find who hired him, Tracy said. And we need to do it before his trial, I added. Because with the Keller Group defending him, he might walk. They'll attack Emma's credibility, claim false memories, argue that I coached her. And if he walks. I didn't finish the sentence. We all knew. If Felipe walked, he'd disappear, and he'd do this to another child in another city with another name. I pulled up my encrypted communication channel, a secure network I'd built for my investigative work. I typed a message to one of my oldest sources, a federal investigator named Benny Cross who specialized in organized crime. Need intel on a cleaner named Felipe Roach/Domingo Nichols. Possibly connected to Prometheus Pharmaceuticals. How deep does this go? The response came within minutes, meet me. Usual place. 1 hour. Come alone. I grabbed my jacket. I'm meeting a source. Keep digging into Prometheus's executive structure. I want to know every name, every connection. Reed, Tracy stood. If this is as organized as you think, these people are dangerous. They've already gone after Emma. What's to stop them from? Nothing, I interrupted. Which is why we move fast. And we stay ahead of them. I met Benny Cross in a parking garage downtown. He was in his late 50s, weathered and cynical. He lit a cigarette despite the no-smoking signs. Felipe Roach, he said without preamble. Also known as Domingo Nichols. Also known as Fidel Lane. Also known as God knows how many other names. You stumbled onto something nasty, Reed. Tell me he's part of a network. Not the kind you're thinking. Not a pedophile ring in the traditional sense. More like independent contractors who specialize in leverage. They target people in specific ways, gather compromising material, then use it for blackmail or manipulation. My blood chilled. Someone hired him to target Emma to get leverage over me. That's my read, Benny continued. Prometheus Pharmaceuticals has been desperate to shut down any investigation into their practices. 3 of their executives are facing federal charges, and they know more whistleblowers are coming. You've built a reputation for exposing corporate fraud. If you were working on something related to them, I wasn't, I said. My current project is about factory closures in the Midwest. Benny studied me. You sure? No preliminary research, no interviews, nothing that might have pinged their radar. I thought back. 3 months ago, right around when Felipe entered our lives, I'd interviewed a former Prometheus sales rep for background on pharmaceutical industry practices. I'd never followed up, moved on to other projects, but the interview was recorded, stored in my cloud drives. Son of a bitch, I muttered. They were watching me. They watched everyone who might be a threat. Felipe was insurance. If you did start digging, they'd have leverage. They could threaten to release whatever he collected, destroy your credibility, ruin your life. Except he got caught, which means they're scrambling. And a cornered pharmaceutical company with billions at stake, Benny flicked his cigarette. That's when people start disappearing. Evidence gets lost. Witnesses gets lost. Witnesses change their stories. So, what do I do? Benny smiled grimly. You do what you do best. You gather evidence. You build a case so airtight that even the Keller Group can't crack it. But you do it quietly. And you do it fast. And if the trial goes south, then you make sure Felipe disappears before he can hurt anyone else. Benny's expression was cold. I'm not saying that officially, you understand. But men like him don't stop. Ever. The system might fail. And when it does, sometimes justice has to be more creative. I understood. Benny had spent his career watching monsters slip through loopholes, hide behind lawyers, escape on technicalities. He was giving me permission, unofficial, deniable permission, to do whatever was necessary. One more thing, Benny said. Prometheus's CEO is Johnson LeBlanc. Former military intelligence. Connected to some very dark operations in the Middle East. He doesn't lose. Ever. If you go after Felipe, you're really going after LeBlanc. Are you prepared for that? I thought of Emma's terrified voice on the phone. Her tears. Her trauma. Yes, I said simply. Good, because LeBlanc's already preparing his countermove. Your ex-wife. She's been meeting with Prometheus lawyers. They're going to paint you as an obsessed, vindictive ex-husband who fabricated this entire thing. They'll use Emma's young age against her. Argue that you coached her testimony. And they've got the resources to make it stick. Let them try. Benny crushed his cigarette under his boot. One last thing. The Nevada case, the one where Felipe's fingerprints matched, the little girl who accused him. She retracted her statement 3 days before trial. Her family moved to Mexico and hasn't been heard from since. My fists clenched. They got to them. They always do. So, if you're going to make a move, make it count. Because you won't get a second chance. As I drove back to my loft, my phone rang. Detective Miller. Reed, we've got a problem. Felipe's lawyers filed a motion to suppress Emma's forensic interview. They're claiming you coached her, that the interview was conducted improperly, and that there's no physical evidence beyond the photos, which they say were planted. Planted? How would I? They don't need proof, just reasonable doubt. And they're good at creating it. The hearing is tomorrow. If the judge suppresses the interview, we're down to just Emma's testimony. And at 4 years old, I understood. Emma would be ripped apart on cross-examination. The case would collapse. I disconnected and made a decision. If the system was going to fail Emma, then I would build my own justice. I pulled up my documentary files and created a new project, The Network. Not for public release. For insurance. For leverage. By morning, I'd have enough evidence to bury not just Felipe, but everyone protecting him. The war had just begun. The motion to suppress hearing was a bloodbath. I sat in the gallery, watching Felipe's defense team, 3 lawyers from the Keller Group, each one more expensive than my entire annual income, systematically dismantle the prosecution's case. Your Honor, the forensic interview was conducted under duress, lead defense attorney Seymour Bates argued smoothly. The child had just experienced a traumatic intrusion by her father, who broke down a door in what can only be described as a violent rage. Is it any surprise that she repeated whatever narrative had been planted in her mind? Assistant DA Doris Chong looked young and overwhelmed. The interview followed all standard protocols. Protocols that require the child to be in a calm state, not actively traumatized by her father's actions, Bates interrupted. Furthermore, the so-called evidence on my client's phone consists of 3 photos of the child, fully clothed, smiling in broad daylight. Hardly the actions of a predator. Those photos were in a hidden folder, Chong protested. A folder my client uses for all personal photos, out of respect for Miss Carroll's privacy. The prosecution is manufacturing sinister intent where none exists. I watched Judge Romero's expression carefully. She was skeptical of the defense's arguments, but the law was the law. Without proper foundation, Emma's interview could be thrown out. I'll take this under advisement, the judge finally said. Ruling by Friday. I followed Chong into the hallway. You're letting them steamroll you. I'm doing my job with what I have, Chong snapped back, which isn't much thanks to your ex-wife's refusal to cooperate and the complete absence of physical evidence beyond those photos. What about Amber? Have you interviewed her? She's lawyered up. Claims she saw nothing inappropriate. That Emma and Felipe got along fine. That you've always been jealous and controlling. Chong's expression softened slightly. Look, I believe you. I believe Emma. But belief doesn't convict. Evidence does. And right now, Bates is making a compelling case that this is a custody dispute blown out of proportion. He's a professional, I said. Felipe. He knows how to leave no trace. Then we need to find a trace. Fast. I returned to my war room. Scott and Tracy had made progress. They'd identified 5 other women in 3 states who dated men matching Felipe's description. All had young children. All relationships ended abruptly when the men vanished. None of them filed police reports, Scott said. But I found social media posts, complaints to friends, weird details that match Felipe's MO. The guy has a type, single mothers with resources, jobs that require travel, ex-husbands who aren't in the picture. Except I am in the picture, I noted. Which means either he got sloppy, or you were specifically chosen, Tracy finished. Because of your investigative work. I pulled up the Prometheus Pharmaceuticals files I'd been compiling. Johnson LeBlanc, the CEO, stared back from his official photo. A stern man in his 50s with military bearing and cold eyes. LeBlanc's background was impressive and disturbing, Army intelligence, private security contracting in Iraq, then suddenly legitimized as a pharmaceutical executive. But his real specialty, according to Benny's sources, was making problems disappear. I need to interview LeBlanc, I said. Are you insane? Scott burst out. The man who possibly ordered Felipe to target Emma. You want to walk into his office. I want him to know I'm coming for him, I corrected. I want him off balance, worried. Predators like LeBlanc are used to operating in shadows. Drag them into the light, and they panic. Or they kill you, Tracy said bluntly. Which is why you'll both have copies of everything we've uncovered. If anything happens to me, it all goes public. LeBlanc needs to know that. I stood. Set up the interview. Tell him I'm doing a documentary on pharmaceutical industry practices and want his perspective. Make it sound innocent. The interview was granted for Thursday afternoon at Prometheus's downtown Denver headquarters, a gleaming tower that screamed corporate wealth and power. I entered with my camera equipment, Scott operating, of course, with a body camera hidden in his jacket for backup. We were led to a conference room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Johnson LeBlanc entered precisely on time, flanked by 2 lawyers and a PR representative. He was exactly as his photo suggested, rigid, controlled, dangerous. Mr. Durham, LeBlanc's handshake was firm. I understand you're working on a documentary about our industry. Among other things, I replied smoothly, settling into the interview setup. I appreciate you taking the time. I know you're dealing with some ongoing legal matters. A flash of annoyance crossed LeBlanc's face. All companies face regulatory scrutiny. It's the nature of the business. Of course. But 3 executives indicted simultaneously seems unusual. We cooperate fully with all investigations and are confident the truth will prevail. I smiled. Truth is what I do. Finding it, exposing it, making sure it doesn't stay hidden. The lawyers shifted uncomfortably, sensing the subtext. I also wanted to ask about a man named Felipe Roach, I continued, watching LeBlanc's reaction carefully. He's been dating my ex-wife, Amber Carroll. She works for your company, I believe. LeBlanc's expression didn't change. We employ thousands of sales representatives. I don't know them all personally. But you would know if one of them was dating a professional criminal, wouldn't you? Someone who specializes in leverage. The room went cold. The lawyers exchanged glances. I have no idea what you're talking about, LeBlanc said, but his voice had lost its warmth. And I think this interview is over. Just one more question, I pressed. When you were in military intelligence, did you ever employ assets who specialized in black operations? The kind that don't leave paper trails. LeBlanc stood. We're done here. And Mr. Durham, be very careful about making unfounded accusations. Defamation lawsuits can be quite expensive. So can hiring predators to target children, I said quietly. But I imagine that cost is built into your budget under security expenses. The guards escorted Scott and me from the building. Once in the parking garage, Scott let out a breath. Holy shit, Reed. You just accused a billionaire CEO of conspiracy to commit child abuse. I needed him to know I'm not backing down. That I know what he did. And now he knows you're a threat. What if Scott's phone buzzed, then mine. Multiple notifications flooding in simultaneously. I pulled up an alert. A new story breaking on every major outlet, investigative filmmaker accused of fabricating child abuse case in custody dispute. My blood turned to ice as I read. Anonymous sources claimed I had a history of manipulating footage, coaching interview subjects, creating false narratives. Screenshots of evidence showing me researching how to coach a child witness. Bank records showing payments to Dr. Sarah Chun, the forensic interviewer, payments that didn't exist but looked real enough. Texts between me and Emma that appeared to show coaching, fabricated, but expertly done. It's all fake, Scott said, scrolling through. But it looks real. Who could, LeBlanc, I said grimly. I threatened him, and he activated his countermeasure. This is how he operates, destroy credibility, manufacture doubt, bury truth under lies. My phone rang. Detective Miller. Reed, what the hell is this? It's a smear campaign. None of it's real. The DA is pulling back. With this much public doubt, they can't move forward on prosecution. Felipe's lawyers are filing a motion to dismiss. The case was collapsing. Everything I had fought for, everything Emma had endured, it was all being buried under manufactured lies. There's more, Miller continued. Judge Romero received an anonymous package this morning. Photos of you outside Felipe's house late at night, watching. They're trying to paint you as obsessive, unstable. I was protecting my daughter. I know, but perception is reality in court. The custody hearing is back on next week, and Amber's lawyers are pushing for supervised visitation for you now. They're saying you're the danger. I disconnected. My hands were shaking with rage and helplessness. Then my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. You should have stayed out of our business. We don't make mistakes twice. If you keep pushing, your daughter won't be the only casualty. A threat, direct and undeniable. Scott read the message over my shoulder. Reed, we need to go to the police. The police can't help. This is beyond them. I looked at my friend. You and Tracy should back away from this. I can't put you at risk too. Screw that, Scott said firmly. We started this together. We finish it together. I nodded, emotion choking my throat. Then I made a decision. If LeBlanc wanted to play dirty, I would show him what dirty really meant. I pulled up my encrypted files and began compiling evidence. Not for court. For destruction. The war had escalated, and I was done playing defense. I spent the next 72 hours barely sleeping, living on coffee and cold fury. While the media tore my reputation apart, while former colleagues distanced themselves, while the justice system prepared to fail Emma, I built something else entirely. Not a documentary, not evidence for court. A weapon. In my war room, 3 screens ran simultaneously. Screen 1 tracked Felipe Roach's movements via a GPS tracker Scott had placed on his Escalade during a midnight operation. Don't ask me how I got close enough, Scott had said grimly. Screen 2 monitored Johnson LeBlanc's communications. I'd called in every favor I had with Benny Cross to get a federal wiretap authorization. Screen 3 displayed the darkest research I had ever compiled. I'd found them, records of other children in 3 states, other families destroyed by men who matched Felipe's description, men who used different names, vanished before charges could stick. But I had something the other families didn't. A decade of investigative experience and 0 remaining faith in the system. This is it, I said to Scott and Tracy, who sat exhausted in my loft. Felipe's pattern. He targets single mothers in professional positions, especially ones with ex-husbands he can frame or marginalize. He builds trust, gains access to children, creates insurance material, photos, videos, anything that could be used for blackmail or manipulation. Then he vanishes before anyone can build a case. And LeBlanc finances the operation, Tracy added, pointing to the financial records we painstakingly traced. Look at these payments from Prometheus shell companies. Every time one of Felipe's identities disappeared, there's a corresponding cash transfer to an offshore account. They're cleaning up, Scott said. Each time Felipe gets close to being caught, they pay him off and relocate him to a new territory with a new identity. Except this time, Felipe got sloppy, I noted. Because he wasn't expecting a father who'd break down doors instead of following proper channels. And now he's stuck. Charges filed, identity burned, legal process engaged. He can't just vanish. So what's his play? Tracy asked. Trial. Beat the charges using the Keller Group's reputation and manufactured doubt, then disappear afterward into whatever new identity LeBlanc provides. I pulled up a new document. My masterpiece. A comprehensive dossier connecting Felipe to LeBlanc, to Prometheus, to a network of similar operations across the country. But more importantly, a detailed plan for making sure none of them walked away. The trial starts Monday, I said. Judge Romero denied the motion to suppress Emma's testimony, but with all the media attention and doubt, the jury's going to be compromised. We need to assume Felipe walks. So, what do we do? Scott asked. I smiled. But there was no warmth in it. We make sure walking free is the last thing he wants to do. I outlined my plan. It was illegal. It was dangerous. It would destroy any remaining credibility I had if it went wrong. But it was also perfectly calibrated to exploit Felipe and LeBlanc's own methods against them. You want to blackmail them? Tracy said slowly. Using the same tactics they used. I want to make them choose between justice and survival, I corrected. If the legal system won't protect Emma, then I'll create a situation where they protect themselves, by confessing. That's insane, Scott said. But he was smiling. I'm in. Tracy looked between us. You know, this could go horribly wrong. It already has, I said quietly. Emma's traumatized. My reputation is destroyed. The justice system is preparing to let a predator walk free. How much worse can it get? You could end up in prison. Then I'll be in prison knowing I protected my daughter and stopped a monster from hurting anyone else. That's a trade I'll make. The plan kicked off Friday night. Scott planted hidden cameras throughout the Prometheus building, including in LeBlanc's office. Security was tight, but Scott had spent months shadowing corporate espionage experts for a documentary. He knew every trick. I leaked fake documents to LeBlanc's team, suggesting that a federal whistleblower had emerged from within Prometheus, ready to testify about the network of contractors like Felipe. The documents were expertly crafted, mixing real information with just enough fabrication to seem credible. Then I waited. Saturday morning, the trap sprung. LeBlanc called an emergency meeting with his lawyers and, crucially, with Felipe. I watched via the hidden camera feed as the three men argued in LeBlanc's office. I don't care what it costs, LeBlanc snarled. This whistleblower can't testify. Find out who it is and make it go away. We can't, one of the lawyers said. The feds have them in protective custody. Then we need insurance, Felipe interjected, his voice cold, professional. There are other families. Other leverage points. If Durham keeps pushing, we apply pressure where it hurts. You mean threaten? His daughter again? LeBlanc asked. Not threaten, Felipe replied, without a trace of emotion. Follow through. One child goes missing in a custody dispute. It barely makes page 3. Tragic accident. Father under investigation for fabricating abuse claims. Mother devastated. The story writes itself. My blood boiled, listening to them casually discuss murdering Emma, but I kept recording. Every word. Every admission. That's extreme, LeBlanc said, but he didn't sound opposed, just cautious. This is what you pay me for, Felipe replied. To handle problems permanently. Durham's a problem. His daughter is leverage. We use leverage. And the trial? I'll walk. The jury's already contaminated with doubt. Worst case, hung jury. And we try again. But Durham needs to understand that continuing his investigation will cost him everything. There it was. Confession. Conspiracy. Intent. All recorded. All admissible. Well, admissible enough if I could find the right prosecutor. But I wasn't done. Phase 2 of the trap required something more personal. Sunday evening, I arranged a meeting with Felipe. I used Amber as the intermediary, convincing her through a carefully worded text that I wanted to clear the air before trial, discuss Emma's well-being, maybe find a peaceful resolution. Amber, still half believing in Felipe's innocence and desperate to avoid the publicity of a trial, set it up. The meeting was at a neutral location, a parking lot near the Prometheus building. Felipe arrived alone, confident, smiling that empty smile. "Reed, I'm surprised you wanted to meet." "I want this over," I said. "Emma doesn't need to go through a trial. Maybe we can come to an understanding." "An understanding?" Felipe's eyes glittered. "What kind of understanding?" "You walk away. Leave town. Leave Amber. Leave us alone. I won't pursue the charges." Felipe laughed. "You don't have the authority to drop charges. The state does. I can convince Emma to recant. Say she misunderstood. That I overreacted. Without her testimony, you walk anyway. Why would you do that?" I stepped closer. "Because I know who you really are. I know about LeBlanc. About the network. About the other families. And I know that if this goes to trial, you'll retaliate. So, I'm offering you an out. Take it and disappear, or we both lose." Felipe studied me. And for the first time, I saw uncertainty in those dead eyes. "You're bluffing," Felipe said. "You don't have anything real on LeBlanc or me. Just theories." "Try me," I replied. Then I played my trump card. "I know about the Nevada case. I know the family that disappeared. I found them, Felipe. They're alive, in witness protection, ready to testify. I know about the operation in Arizona, the one in Texas. I have 5 families, 5 children, 5 sets of parents willing to testify that you're a serial predator who's been protected by Prometheus money." That was a lie. I hadn't found the families yet. But Felipe didn't know that. "Even if that were true," Felipe said slowly, "it would take years to prosecute, and you'd have to survive that long." "Is that a threat?" "It's a reality. You've already been framed as an obsessive, unstable father. One more tragedy and Emma ends up as just another statistic." Felipe leaned in, dropping all pretense. "You can't win this, Reed. The system is bought and paid for. The lawyers, the judges, the media. We control all of it. You're just one man trying to fight a machine, and machines crush people." I smiled. "You're probably right. But here's the thing about machines. They're predictable. And I've spent 10 years learning how to break them." I pulled out my phone and played the audio from Saturday's meeting. LeBlanc's voice. Felipe's voice. Discussing murdering Emma. Felipe's expression changed. Not panic. Calculation. "That's inadmissible. You recorded it illegally." "True, but I'm not giving it to a court. I'm giving it to the media. By tomorrow morning, every news outlet will have this audio. Your face will be everywhere. Your real face, connected to every identity you've ever used. And then I'll release the documentary I've been making, the one that connects you to LeBlanc, to Prometheus, to a nationwide network of child exploitation. You won't be able to vanish this time, Felipe. You'll be too famous. You'll destroy yourself, too. Your career, your credibility." "Already destroyed," I interrupted. LeBlanc made sure of that. "So now I've got nothing to lose, and everything to fight for. Can you say the same?" For the first time, Felipe looked genuinely afraid. "What do you want?" "A confession. On camera. Everything. Your real identity. How you operate. Who hired you. How many children you've targeted. You give me that. And maybe I don't release the LeBlanc audio. Maybe you get to play out, serve your time, and eventually disappear into obscurity. And if I don't, then you become the most wanted man in America, and every police department, every FBI field office, every vigilante parent group will be hunting you. How long do you think you'd last?" Felipe was trapped, and he knew it. I'd learned from a decade of investigations that predators like Felipe operated on cost-benefit analysis. As long as the benefit outweighed the risk, they continued. But flip that equation, and they folded. "You've got 24 hours, I said. Meet me at my studio tomorrow at noon with your confession, or I release everything I have. Your choice." I walked away, heart pounding, knowing I'd just bet Emma's safety on a desperate gamble. Monday morning, the day of the trial. I sat in my studio with every camera I owned trained on a single chair. Scott monitored the equipment while Tracy sat with Emma in a safe house 3 states away. I wasn't taking any chances. Detective Miller stood in the corner, arms crossed. "This is insane. Even if he shows up, even if he confesses, a coerced confession is inadmissible. I'm not coercing him, I replied. I'm offering him a choice. The door opened. Felipe entered, looking different. Disheveled. Scared. Human, for the first time since I'd met him. The cameras stay off, he said immediately. No deal. You confess on camera, or I release the LeBlanc audio to CNN in 5 minutes. Felipe's jaw clenched. You're destroying an innocent man's life. Innocent? My laugh was bitter. You threatened to murder my daughter 2 days ago, on tape. You've targeted at least 5 other families that we know of. How many others, Felipe? How many children? Silence. Sit down, I commanded. Felipe sat. The cameras rolled. State your real name. Domingo Nichols. His voice was flat. Defeated. And before that, Fidel Lane. Before that, Tomas Walters. I've used 7 different identities in 12 years. What do you do? I'm a contractor. I specialize in leverage operations. Explain that. People pay me to get close to targets, gather compromising material, create situations that can be exploited later. Usually, it's corporate espionage or political opposition research. Sometimes, it's other things. Like children. Felipe's eyes flickered. Like children. How many have you targeted? I don't keep count. I leaned forward. Guess. Maybe 20. Maybe more. I don't know. The number hit me like a physical blow. 20 children. 20 families destroyed by this monster. And Johnson LeBlanc hired you to target my daughter. Indirectly. His people reached out, said you were digging into Prometheus, that you needed to be neutralized. The original plan was just to gather blackmail material, photos, videos, whatever I could use to make you back off. But then, Felipe trailed off. But then what? But then I realized your daughter was perfect. Young enough to be vulnerable. Old enough to be traumatized effectively. And you're the type of father who'd break himself trying to save her. It was a perfect leverage situation. You planned to abuse my daughter as leverage. That's what I was paid to do. Detective Miller made a noise of disgust. I held up a hand, keeping my voice steady despite the rage boiling inside me. And the other families? The ones in Nevada, Arizona, Texas. Similar operations. Different clients. Politicians. Corporate executives. Wealthy individuals who needed problems to go away. Children make excellent leverage. Parents will do anything to protect them. Once you have material, you can control entire families. Did you hurt those children? Felipe's pause was damning. I did what was necessary for the operation. Did you hurt them? My voice rose. Yes. Barely a whisper. Yes. I hurt them. The confession lasted 90 minutes. By the end, I had a complete picture of a nationwide network of exploitation, funded by corporate money, protected by expensive lawyers, enabled by law enforcement failures. Felipe wasn't just a predator. He was a mercenary predator, selling his services to the highest bidder. When it was over, Detective Miller arrested Felipe immediately. We'll add conspiracy, racketeering, interstate crimes. He's never seeing freedom again. What about LeBlanc? I asked. The audio you recorded won't hold up in court, but it'll be enough to get federal investigators involved. Combined with Felipe's testimony, we can build a RICO case against Prometheus. I nodded, exhausted. Emma, with this confession, the custody case is over. You'll have full custody. And Amber? Miller paused. She's been cooperating. She had no idea what Felipe really was. She's devastated. I felt a flash of sympathy for my ex-wife, but only a flash. She'd brought Felipe into Emma's life. Whatever guilt she felt, she'd have to live with that choice. The trial was postponed indefinitely as prosecutors scrambled to incorporate the new evidence. The media, which had been so eager to destroy my reputation, now pivoted to the bigger story: corporate conspiracy, child exploitation, a network of predators protected by wealth. My documentary, which I'd planned as insurance, became a bombshell exposé. I released it not through traditional channels, but directly online, free for everyone to watch. Within 24 hours, it had 30 million views. Within a week, it sparked federal investigations into 7 corporations beyond Prometheus. 3 months later, I stood in the same courthouse where my nightmare had begun. But this time, for a very different hearing. Judge Romero presided over the sentencing. Felipe Roach, Domingo Nichols, Fidel Lane, whatever his name was, sat shackled at the defense table, his expensive lawyers gone. The Keller Group had dropped him the moment his confession went public. Mr. Nichols, Judge Romero began, her voice sharp as a blade. I have presided over family court for 23 years. I have seen some of the worst human behavior imaginable. But what you did, systematically targeting children as tools for corporate warfare, is perhaps the most calculated evil I have encountered. Felipe said nothing. You will serve 15 consecutive life sentences with no possibility of parole. You will be placed in a facility where you will have ample time to contemplate the lives you destroyed. May God have more mercy on you than you showed those children. The gavel fell. Felipe was led away, finally stripped of all pretense and power. But I didn't feel heroic. I felt tired. Mr. Durham, how does it feel to get justice for Emma? Do you think Johnson LeBlanc will face charges? What's next for you? I held up a hand. I'm not a hero. I'm just a father who did what any parent would do. The real heroes are the investigators who built the federal case, the prosecutors who saw it through, and most importantly, the survivors, including my daughter, who had the courage to speak their truth. I prepared a statement, working with Benny Cross and the FBI to ensure it didn't compromise ongoing investigations. Johnson LeBlanc has been arrested on multiple counts of conspiracy and racketeering, I continued. Prometheus Pharmaceuticals is under federal investigation, and several executives have already pleaded guilty. The network Felipe was part of is being dismantled piece by piece. We've identified 14 other victims across 6 states, and we're working to connect them with resources and support. What about your daughter? How is Emma? My expression softened. Emma is in therapy. She's healing. It'll take time, but she's strong. Stronger than I ever imagined. And she's safe now. That's what matters most. Will you make more documentaries? Yes, but I'm taking some time off first. Emma and I are going to Disney World. I smiled. She wants to meet all the princesses, and after everything she's been through, she deserves every magical moment I can give her. The press conference ended. I drove to Tracy's house where Emma was staying. My sister met me at the door. She's been asking for you all day, Tracy said, hugging me tightly. You did good, Reed. You saved her. We saved her, I corrected. I couldn't have done this without you and Scott. Emma appeared in the hallway, clutching her stuffed rabbit. When she saw me, her face lit up. Genuine joy, the kind I hadn't seen in months. Daddy. She ran into my arms, and I held her. Close, breathing in her shampoo-scented hair, feeling her small heart beat against my chest. Are the bad people gone? She asked quietly. They're gone, baby. All of them. And they can never hurt you again. Promise. Promise. Later that evening, with Emma asleep in my arms on Tracy's couch, I reflected on the last 3 months. Felipe was in prison. LeBlanc was facing multiple life sentences. The Prometheus executives had pleaded guilty or were awaiting trial. The network was shattered. But the real victory wasn't in the arrests or the justice served. It was in the small moments, Emma laughing at cartoons, sleeping peacefully, slowly regaining the innocence that had been stolen from her. Scott arrived with takeout, and the 3 of us ate in comfortable silence. You know you're famous now, right? Scott said, scrolling through social media. People are calling you everything from Dad of the Year to corporate vigilante. There's even talk of a movie. God, I hope not, I groaned. The last thing I want is Hollywood glamorizing this nightmare. At least Amber's doing better, Tracy offered. She called me yesterday. She's in therapy, too, working through everything. She wants to rebuild a relationship with Emma, slowly. I nodded. I'm not standing in her way. Emma needs her mother, the real version, not the one who was so desperate for companionship she missed the danger. If Amber can get there, I'll support it. That's big of you. It's not about me or Amber. It's about what's best for Emma. Your documentary sparked the biggest white-collar crime investigation in decades. Well done. Just wanted to protect my daughter, I replied simply. Everything else was collateral damage. But even as I said it, I knew that wasn't entirely true. I'd wanted justice. Not just for Emma, but for all the other children, all the other families destroyed by men like Felipe and corporations like Prometheus. I'd wanted accountability in a world that too often let the powerful escape consequences. And for once, I'd gotten it. 6 months later, the Disney trip was everything Emma had dreamed of. I watched my daughter dance with princesses, shriek with joy on rides, eat ice cream until she was sick with happiness. She was 5 now, still healing but stronger every day. On our last night in Florida, we sat on the beach watching the sunset. Emma built sandcastles while I documented the moment on my phone. Not for any documentary, just for memory. Daddy? Emma looked up at me with those wise, 2-year-old eyes that broke my heart. Are you happy right now? This moment? I'm the happiest I've ever been, sweetheart. Me too. She returned to her castle. I'm glad the bad people are gone. Me too, baby. Me too. My phone rang. Amber. We talked occasionally now, carefully rebuilding a co-parenting relationship. Hey, I answered. Hey, how's Disney? Perfect. Emma says hi. Tell her I love her. And Reed, Amber's voice caught. Thank you for everything. For being the father she needed when I failed her. For saving her when I couldn't. For everything. She's our daughter, Amber. We both do what we have to do. We talked for a few more minutes, actual conversation, not the bitter exchanges that had defined our relationship for 2 years. It wasn't friendship. Not yet. Maybe never. But it was healing. After hanging up, I watched Emma play in the sand. The sunset painted everything gold, her hair, the ocean, the castle she was building with such concentration. This was what victory looked like. Not a confession or an arrest or a documentary that exposed truth. Victory was a 5-year-old girl playing without fear, laughing without hesitation, sleeping without nightmares. I had spent a decade exposing darkness, documenting evil, fighting systems that failed the vulnerable. I'd made enemies, sacrificed relationships, lived on the edge of paranoia and obsession. But in the end, when it mattered most, I'd won. And Emma was safe. That was all that mattered. Daddy, come build with me. Emma called. I put away my phone and joined my daughter, building sandcastles. In the fading light, 2 survivors finding joy in simple moments. And that was enough.